As you'll see on the screen currently is an email from the manager of the International Cricket Council's umpire coaches, Mr. Stuart Cummings. To start off the course and for the first hour of tonight's lecture, we are going to be going through the new boundary catch laws. And this has come into effect as recently as last week. Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh in the World Test Championship new cycle started last week, Tuesday, on the 17th of June. And you will see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, the umpires involved in that particular match. Alex Wharf from England, Rod Tucker from Australia were the on-field umpires. TV umpire was Allahudien Paleker from South Africa. And we will be having Allahudien Paleker joining us this evening to share his views and expertise on the changes to the boundary catch laws. And please note that the law itself, as written by the Marylebone Cricket Club, who are the custodians of the laws of cricket, has not yet been changed. The law in the law book will only be changed in October 2026. However, the International Cricket Council have seen the need and the want to change this playing condition in their men's international competitions going forward, effective 17 June 2025. So depending on where you are in the world and which competitions you are involved in, the old law might still apply or the new playing condition might still apply. So you need to make sure whichever game that you are going to be in charge of as an umpire going forward, at least for the next 15 months until the court law is written into the new laws. Are you using the old law or are you using the new playing condition? That is the question that all umpires associations need to ask themselves going into a new season in the Southern Hemisphere or currently ongoing seasons in the Northern Hemisphere. So without further ado, we'll get into the admin of the level 3 course after this session on the boundary catching. I am going to take us through the reasoning and the changes in the playing condition for boundary catches adopted by the International Cricket Council effective 17 June. And then I'm going to play all of you 9 scenarios of boundary catches or fielding near the boundary, where I will ask all of you to type in your answers based on the new playing conditions into the chat box. And once you have all had your chance to be a TV umpire, then we will get ICC Elite Panel umpire Allahudien Paleker to give us his expert opinion on those 9 scenarios. So it will be interactive, and after he's given us his expert opinion on the 9 scenarios, we will open up the floor for questions and answers directed to Allahudien Paleker. He is commonly referred to by those who know him well as Pallies, so excuse me if I use Pallies going forward. We'll open the floor up for questions directed to Pallies. I will take a maximum of 5 questions because Pallies is involved in the second test match between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh starting tomorrow. And those of you who know your world times will know that it is now 9:36 p.m. in Sri Lanka. And Pallies is coming from a team dinner with the other match officials. but he will need to get an early night's rest in because he will be on field for the next 5 days. So thank you very much, Palis, for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us. And I'm sure the candidates on the call would love to hear from you. So we'll only take 5 questions for Palis, and those will be by hand. And we will only take those hands once we are done with the 9 scenarios. And what we'd like to do is keep 3 of those questions related to boundary catches, and then maybe 2 questions to Palis about anything umpiring related. So, moving on to the first topic of tonight, the new court law interpretation by the International Cricket Council, effective 17 June 2025. Here we've got a picture of a Mumbai, India fielder taking a catch on the boundary in an IPL match a few years ago. And of course, we see this happen more and more nowadays with fielders practicing boundary catches all the time. It's become a huge part of the game, especially the shorter format of the game. And why was there a need to change the law or the playing condition? I will try and explain that in the next few slides, and we'll also see what used to be legal, what is no longer legal. And I think it will make sense to everyone as to why the changes were made after we look at the 9 scenarios. So what does the new law read, or at least the playing condition adopted by the International Cricket Council? 19.5.2 reads as follows: a fielder who is not in contact with the ground is considered to be grounded beyond the boundary if prior to their first contact with the ball, their final contact with the ground was not entirely within the boundary. This applies to any fielder who makes contact with the ball after it has been delivered by the bowler, whether or not the ball has previously been touched by another fielder. That's a long 2 sentences, lots of ifs and buts, but I think it's important just to keep in your mind that a fielder can only make contact with the ball while they are within the boundary, inside the boundary rope, or if they're in the air, then they need to have jumped from inside the boundary, or if they are completing a catch, they need to complete the catch inside the field of play. We will unpack more of this detail in the next few slides. The new law goes on to tell us that if a fielder's first contact with the ball does not contravene 19.5.2, which I've just read, that fielder may then jump from outside the boundary in order to make contact with the ball whilst airborne. And we will see how this is allowed in the scenarios. After making contact with the ball once airborne, all subsequent contact with the ground by that fielder until the ball becomes dead must be within the field of play. Any subsequent contact with the ground outside the boundary by that fielder during that delivery, whether or not in contact with the ball, will result in a boundary scored. So what this is telling us is that a fielder is not allowed to juggle the ball outside the field of play. And also, once they have made one single touch of the ball in the air, they need to immediately get back into the field of play. So you will see that previously fielders were allowed to almost juggle the ball outside the boundary as long as they were not in contact with the ground outside of the boundary at the same time that they were in contact with the ball. But this is no longer the case. And again, this will become easier to understand when we look at the various examples. Furthermore, if the ball is returned to the field of play, whether to another fielder or onto the ground by a fielder who has jumped from outside the boundary, that fielder must land and remain within the boundary until the ball becomes dead. Otherwise, a boundary shall be scored. So as mentioned, if a fielder taps the ball, they need to get back into the field of play as soon as possible after making that single contact in the air. We've now read the law and it's still a little bit difficult to understand. Here are some notes that will hopefully make it easier for all of us to understand. First note, at any time, if a fielder is touching the ball and the ground, they must be wholly inside the boundary. So you cannot, as a fielder, be touching the ball and you are not inside the field of play. This is covered in law 19.5.1 and has not changed at all. Point number 2, if a fielder's first touch of the ball is while airborne, then they must have been inside the boundary before they left the ground to make that touch. This is covered by law 19.5.2 and has also not changed. It means that a fielder can never wait for the ball outside of the boundary, jump in, and then try and parry the ball back while in the air, having jumped from outside. You have to jump from inside the field of play and then make contact with the ball in the air. Point number 3, where more than one fielder is involved in a catch, points number 1 and 2 above apply to each and every fielder. Okay, so the restrictions are not just for one fielder, the restrictions apply to all fielders involved in the catch or in the game. The point goes on to mention that each fielder's first touch of the ball must come while they are inside the field of play or having taken off from inside the field of play. A few more points before we go into the examples. Under the new law, a fielder must be inside the boundary before they first touch the ball. And if they then touch the ball in the air, having been grounded outside the boundary, they must next land inside the boundary. Okay, so previously, and we will see examples which were given out court based on the old law. This new law tells us that you cannot have a fielder juggling the ball outside of the boundary just because their feet are not touching the ground outside of the boundary when they juggle the ball. No, this time around, it tells us clearly that a fielder cannot make multiple touches of the ball outside the boundary. Once the fielder has grounded any part of their body over the boundary that's outside the field of play, the next time they touch the ball, they must land wholly inside the boundary. And all of their contact with the ground after this point must be within the boundary. So the time that the fielder spends outside of the boundary has now considerably been reduced. If a player is involved in a relay catch, where they parry the ball back inside to another fielder, the fielder who touches the ball outside the boundary must land wholly inside the field of play, even if they don't subsequently touch the ball. So that fielder cannot jump up from inside and then parry the ball and then land outside the field of play. If a fielder jumps from beyond the boundary and parries the ball back inside the boundary, but the fielder lands outside the boundary, then the ball is to be considered grounded outside the field of play. Okay, so when you jump up as a fielder, you need to land back in the field of play after touching the ball. Right, that was quite a lot to take in, and the easiest way, as I mentioned, for all of us to learn the application of the new playing condition effective 17 June by the International Cricket Council for men's international matches. The best way is for us to look through some scenarios and talk through whether it's a boundary 6 or the striker is out caught. And before I show you all of these, just a note that Stuart Cummings, the umpire manager's coach or umpire coach's manager, subsequent to that email that was displayed before the start of the lecture, he sent another email to mention that these new boundary court laws apply to men's international cricket only for the time being. Why? Because women's international cricket is currently in a different cycle, and their cycle will adopt the changes only in October 2026. So currently, these new boundary catching playing conditions apply to men's international cricket only. As mentioned, you need to find out from your local association whether these playing conditions are going to be adopted now immediately, or you are going to wait until the law is changed in the Marylebone Cricket Club law book in October 2026 before you and your association adopt these laws and playing conditions. So we've got 9 scenarios. I want you to all type into the chat box. Please start by typing scenario 1 or just 1 dot and then your answer to the scenario. Is this a boundary 6 or is this out court, based on the new ICC boundary catch playing conditions interpretation that I've just gone through? After we have given our thoughts, then I will hand over to Allahudien Paleker and we will play these 9 scenarios again, and he will talk us through why it's a boundary 6 or why it is out court. And he will also mention if that is a change from the old law or it's the same as the old law, or whatever the case might be. Right, so get ready for answering in the chat box your decision for scenario 1. There is no volume on any of these scenarios, so I'll talk you through it. Alex Hales takes the catch inside the boundary, then he throws the ball up, and as he goes back, you'll see that his foot actually touches the boundary cushion, but he wasn't in contact with the boundary. He wasn't in contact with the ball when he touched the boundary cushion. That's very important. I'll play it for you again. And you need to tell me, is this a boundary 6 or is the striker out court? Scenario 1, boundary 6, or scenario 1, out court? Please type your answer into the chat box now. And after we've gone through all 9 scenarios, then Palis is going to take us through the correct interpretation as per the new ICC playing conditions. Boundary catching scenario number 2. This was a controversial one at the time. Fielder throws the ball up in the air, and then he's still outside the field of play when he taps back the ball. But you'll notice that he actually jumps up in the air. So when he taps the ball back into the field of play, he is not in contact with the ground. So let's play that one again for you. They're going to replay it for us slowly. Throws the ball up in the air, realizes that he's still outside, the ball's still outside, jumps up in the air, taps it back, and his colleague completes the catch inside the field of play. According to the new ICC playing conditions, is that a boundary 6 or is that out court? Please type scenario 2 into the chat box and type boundary 6 or type out court. Tricky one. But if you listened carefully, I think you will know the correct answer to this one. Okay. Interestingly, back then, it was out court. Is it still out court or is it now boundary 6? Let's move on. Boundary catching scenario number 3. This is Glenn Maxwell on the boundary, doing his thing, takes the catch inside the field of play, throws it up. Then what happens is he jumps back into the field of play, and just before landing back in the field of play, he takes the catch for a second time. So there he's outside the field of play, and then he jumps up both feet off the ground, takes the second catch, and lands inside the field of play. Is this a boundary 6 or is this striker out court? Please type into the chat box scenario 3 out court or scenario 3 boundary 6. And once again, we'll go through all of these at the end with Palis. Boundary catching scenario number 4. This one caused a lot of debate over the years. Fielder takes the catch inside the field of play, throws it up, but notices that he's thrown it outside the field of play. Batter wants a boundary 6. What he did quite cleverly is he made sure that his feet were off the ground when he juggled the ball back up into the air, and he completed the catch inside the field of play. So, according to the new ICC boundary catching playing conditions interpretation, is this out court or is this boundary 6? Moving swiftly along to a ladies' game, India against England a few years ago. Great piece of athleticism on the boundary by the fielder. She catches the ball, realizes she's going to fall out of the boundary, and then throws the ball up, dives in the air when she takes the catch for a second time back in the field of play. Scenario 5, boundary 6, or scenario 5, out court. Please put your answer into the chat box. Now we will go through all 9 scenarios with Palis after you have given your opinions in the chat box. Boundary catching scenario number 6. Again in Australia. Quite a lot happens in Australia on the boundaries. This is a good bit of teamwork by the fielders on the boundary. So the first fielder takes the catch, inside the field of play. He realizes that his momentum is going to take him outside the field of play, so he throws this quite a fair few meters back into the field of play, and his colleague completes the catch comfortably inside the boundary. So scenario number 6, boundary 6, or scenario number 6, out court. Please type your answer into the chat box now. Next one was a test match between England and Pakistan, probably a couple of years ago now, not too long ago. I think it was the Wokes on the boundary. He takes the catch inside the field of play, throws the ball up, and then we need to watch carefully here, because when he makes second contact with the ball to try and complete the catch, his right foot appears to still be in contact with the ground outside the field of play. We'll get a better angle of it now. So from outside the field of play, we will see it a little bit better. This is not the best angle. The best angle will come up shortly, and they will slow it down nicely for us. So here's the best angle. So as he makes contact with the ball there, they'll rewind it for us. His foot is in contact with the field outside of the boundary. So boundary catching scenario number 7, is this a boundary 6 or is this out court? Boundary catching scenario number 8, way back in 2009, Angelo Matthews, a young Angelo Matthews, who has recently played his final test match, I believe. I saw a guard of honor for him a couple of days ago. Back in his youth, he was pulling off stunts on the boundary. Here, what's happened is he's taken the catch inside the field of play. He realizes that his momentum is going to take him outside the field of play, so he's going to throw the ball up, and the throw ended up with him. Let's play this one again. The throw ends up outside the field of play, and he takes off so that when he taps the ball back into the field of play, he himself is not in contact with the ground outside of the field of play. So is this a boundary 6, scenario number 8, or is this a what we call runs? So however many runs that the batters ran is what they will score. So please type into the chat box scenario 8, runs, or type into the chat box boundary 6, according to the new ICC playing conditions. Before we move on to scenario number 9, I'm just going to go into the meeting room settings to be able to allow Pales to switch his microphone on so that he can join us after scenario 9 to give us answers. Right, so I will play scenario number 9 while I do that. Scenario number 9 is not a catch. It's a piece of fielding on the boundary by Jasprit Bumrah. Note that his feet are touching the cushions when he takes off. So question here is this a boundary 6 or is this runs? Right, let me just go into the meeting settings to be able to allow people to unmute their microphones. Please bear with me while I have a look at the options here. Meeting options. I'll play this one again for us. So catching scenario number 6, is number 9, is this boundary 6? Or is this runs? Participation, allow microphone for attendees, allow camera for attendees. So please, ladies and gents, you are all now able to unmute your microphones and also to switch on your cameras. But for the time being, I would only like Allahudien Paleker to join us to chat. Palis, good evening. Are you with us?
Good evening, Tom. Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I hope you had a good dinner with your team, ready for the second test match starting tomorrow.
Yeah, it was a good time. Met up with 1 or 2 old friends as well, so it was good.
Lovely. Okay, Palis, so I'm going to ask everybody else to please mute their microphones while Palis takes us through all 9 scenarios. Thanks to all of you for giving your opinions, and we won't go through your answers. You will be able to know if you got them right or wrong as Palis takes us through them one by one. I'm just going to reshare my screen, and we will be good to go in a couple of seconds time. Palis, just confirm that you're able to see my screen.
Yeah, got it. I can see your screen.
Great stuff. Just before we start, you were involved in the test match where these new playing conditions came into effect for the first time. Were there any boundary catches for you to deal with, especially as being the TV umpire?
Yeah, so there was quite a few trailblazing new playing conditions that we had to implement in this test. All went well, so that's a good start. So no boundary catches. There was a boundary that was checked where the fielder's foot was on the boundary line. He slid and dived and the cushion moved backwards.
Okay.
And when he came back into the field of play, his foot was on the line where the cushion was, and then he was in contact with the ball. And obviously they showed it on the screen, and I gave it as boundary 4, and they couldn't quite understand that because the cushion moved backwards. So
Right.
they thought that that's now the new boundary, but actually there's the line that's underneath the boundary cushion. So the existing boundary still stays if the cushion is moved outwards. If the cushion is moved inwards, then the boundary comes forward. So that was the only boundary I had. I did see in the test match yesterday, I think it was, Jadeja took a catch on the boundary, which was part of the new laws. And
Okay.
I'll just touch on that. I think there's one of these videos is quite similar to the catch that he took yesterday.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Palis. Maybe for our next lecture on Thursday, we can have a look at that Jadeja boundary catch, as well as the slipping of the fielder that you mentioned in your match. So thanks for those. It's always easier to explain these types of scenarios when we actually see them on video rather than trying to talk through them. Great. So I'm just going to play each one, and if you can talk us through whether it's a boundary 6 or whether it is a catch and why it's a boundary 6 or why it's a catch, and maybe if there's been a change that it's now a catch whereas it was a 6 first, or vice versa. If you can just talk us through if there was a change or not. Thanks, Palis.
No problems. Yeah, so in the first scenario, let's just give a decision first. So the decision is out first. Reason being that the fielder's first contact is inside the field of play. So we just run that through.
Yeah.
So his first contact is inside the field of play, pops it up, and then he steps outside the field of play and then dives back inside with his final contact inside the field of play. So there's no change. That was out before the new law and it's still out.
Perfect. Thanks, Palis. And there's no issue with him having touched the boundary cushion sort of on his way out, eh?
No, so the important, because of his first contact. So the first contact was inside the field of play. So whatever happens between the first and the second contact doesn't matter as long as the last contact is inside the field of play. And when we come to Bumrah's catch at the end, we may as well just touch on it now while we can compare the two.
Sure.
He starts off, his first contact is from the boundary cushion. So that means that his first contact starts from outside the field of play. Therefore, that's a boundary 6. Whereas in this scenario, his first contact is inside the field of play. Then he leaves the field, and at no point does he touch the ball grounded beyond the boundary or in the air, which is now what the new law covers. And his final contact is inside the field of play. So this one it was out before the new law and it's still out.
Perfect. Thanks, Palis. Moving on to the next one. Some jungling outside of the field of play here.
Yeah, so again, their first contact inside. Now he makes contact with the ball outside of the field of play, but he's not grounded, he's in the air. So he's in the air, flicks it back, and flicks it to his colleague. Okay. So
if we can just have silence from the rest of the audience, please. Please bear with me. I'm just going to mute everyone. You'll just have to put your volume back on, microphone back on. Mute all. Okay, Palis, I've muted everyone. If you can unmute and then
yeah, okay, I'm unmuted.
Complete this one for us.
Okay, so first contact is inside, which is fine. Then he leaves the field of play and makes contact with the ball outside of the field of play. He palms it back to his colleague, as you can see there. But in this scenario, he makes, as you see now, he's making contact with the ball beyond the boundary in the air, which is okay. He now needs to land inside of the field of play to make this catch valid. Once he palms that back to his colleague, he remains outside the field of play. Therefore, that is now a boundary 6. So for that catch to have been valid, when he palms it, he actually needs to jump back inside. So at this point, it's okay. At that point, and then here, he needs to end up inside. So there's just 2 points that, or a couple of points that you need to remember. The first contact has to be inside the field of play. The last contact has to be inside the field of play. Whatever happens in between doesn't matter, which was in scenario 1. However, if he makes contact with the ball outside of the field of play, as he does in this video, he has to end back inside, irrespective whether he's taking the catch or his colleague is taking the catch.
Okay, so as he jumped, so Palis, as he jumped up to palm the ball back into the field of play, he needed, that jump of his needed to land back in the field of play.
Yes, to make this catch valid. So once he touches it here, he needs to land inside.
Okay.
Then it's fair catch, batsman out. But because he lands outside, it now becomes a boundary 6.
Okay. Perfect. It used to be out court. Now it's boundary 6.
So that's a change according to the new laws.
Perfect. Thanks, Palis. Next one is scenario number 3. Glenn Maxwell on the boundary.
I think this one is very similar to the first one. So again, this decision is out. His first contact is inside the field of play. The ball is still inside. He leaves the field of play and then jumps back inside and then completes the catch. First contact inside, throws it up, steps outside, and then steps back inside, catches it in the air and lands inside the field of play. So again, no change there. That was out before the new law and it's still out.
Perfect. Thanks, Palis. Pretty straightforward, this one. No trouble. As long as his foot there had left
off the ground. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Scenario number 4, which caused a lot of debate about 5 years ago when it was taken.
So this is actually the catch or the scenario that prompted the ICC to change the law. Because if you look at the other scenarios, it's not too bad. They're just palming it outside. It's one touch. He actually juggles it a few times while still being outside, jumping and hopping, and and it's perfectly legal what he did, because at no point was he grounded beyond the boundary. At no point was in contact with the ball and the ground at the same time. So he just used the laws very well. So it was this decision or this scenario that prompted the ICC to change the law. So again, now here, when they say, I think they talk about you have one opportunity. So you have one opportunity to palm the ball back. However, you need to land inside the field of play. So here, I think he's palmed it twice and then come back into the field of play. So once you make contact with it once outside, you have to land inside. So he catches the ball here, throws it up. That's 1, 2, and then he jumps back in. So that one, old law out, new law, boundary 6. Because of him making contact outside more than once and then landing inside.
Perfect. So you are allowed to juggle it once, but when you juggle it, you need to land back in the field of play immediately after that one and only juggle.
Yeah.
Happy. Thanks, Palis. That's I think a lot of people felt at the time that, yes, although it was according to the laws out, it just didn't look right. And I for one, am glad that the ICC have changed that.
Yeah, so they're still allowing these acrobatic catches and these good fielding on the boundary. It's just they've now limited it to only one. You can just palm it up once, then you must land inside.
Perfect.
Which does make it a bit easier.
Yeah. Scenario number 5. Good piece of athleticism on the boundary here.
Again, this is still, it was out before the new law and it's still out. First contact inside. She throws the ball up, leaves the field of play, jumps up in the air, catches it, and final contact inside the field of play.
Perfect. Scenario number 6, again in Australia. They're very active on the boundary in Australia. Good bit of teamwork here.
Yeah. So the difference between this one and the other teamwork is that his first contact is inside the field of play. And then he flicks it back to his colleague and then leaves the field of play. So this is exactly the same scenario of yesterday where Jadeja took the catch. He caught the ball, threw it while in the field of play, then left the field of play. So in that instance, you don't need to get back into the field of play because you didn't make contact with the ball outside the field of play.
Correct.
So it's only when you're in contact with the ball outside, you need to land back inside. So in this scenario, his first contact is inside the field of play. And before he leaves the field of play, he is able to throw it to his colleague, and then his momentum takes him over the boundary. He doesn't have to come back because his first contact was inside. He threw the ball to his colleague while inside. So going over the boundary doesn't matter to him. However, only if he touched it outside, then he needs to be back inside.
Perfectly understood. Well explained. Thanks, Palis. Scenario number 7. Test match a couple of years ago. Wokes on the boundary for England.
So again, here, first contact inside, throws it up, then steps outside. But as we saw in the video from the other angle, when he comes back inside, he's in contact with the boundary and the ball at the same time. So at that point there, therefore that's a boundary 6.
Boundary 6, old laws, boundary 6, new laws.
Yeah, nothing's changed there.
Perfect. Scenario number 8, Angelo Matthews. I think this was one of the first ones to cause a bit of an uproar in terms of what's allowed and what's not allowed on the boundary. Obviously not out because no catch was completed, but talk us through the boundary 6 or runs, please.
So again, first contact inside, which is fine. Then he throws the ball up. And now at that point, he makes contact with the ball beyond the boundary. So after slapping that ball, he would have to have ended inside the field of play for it to be good fielding. So at that point there, so that slap is fine, but he needed to end up inside the field of play. So because he landed outside, it's now a boundary 6. So the old laws, this was good fielding, but now it is boundary 6 because of contact outside the field of play and him not ending up back inside the field of play. So if you notice, most of the scenarios, the terminology or the wording that I'm using is first contact inside and last contact inside. So if you just remember those things, then it's quite easy to interpret. Whatever happens in between doesn't matter, as long as first contact is inside, last contact is inside. And if after the first contact, which is inside the field of play, he leaves the field of play and touches the ball while being airborne, then he has to land back inside the field of play.
Perfect. It's actually a lot simpler the way you've put it, Palis, because the old laws just opened up so many different interpretations, and it was not always easy for TV umpires to make decisions, or at least not always easy for the audience to understand the decision that was made by the TV umpire.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Last one, we've referred to it already. Let's just go through it. Bumrah on the boundary. Sorry, I'll switch the volume off.
So so at that point there, his foot's on the boundary cushion there and he takes off from there. So because he's taken off from the boundary, he's actually beyond the boundary, and that's a boundary 6 because you have to start off from inside the field of play.
So similarly,
again, nothing's changed. It was a 6 before the new law, and it's still a 6 now.
Yeah, I think where some people get confused with this one, Palis, is they think that on the boundary cushion is still inside the field of play, but it's actually outside the field of play.
Yeah.
So actually, if he had also been outside the field of play and then jumped and then parried it back in, that would also be a boundary 6 because the first contact needs to be from inside the field of play, which it's not.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your expert analysis, Palis. We are now going to open up the floor for questions and answers directed to Palis. I see a lot of you have given your answers for the 9 scenarios. Thank you very much. Is there anything that anybody would like cleared up in terms of boundary catches? We've got Palis for the next 9 minutes. If you've got any questions, please put your hands up now, and we will take the first 5 hands. First hand up, Aviwe from Border in South Africa. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Hi, Tom, you can hear me?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. I failed to understand scenario 6. If Mr. Allahudien can repeat for me, please. Scenario 6.
Scenario number 6. Okay, we'll go through that one again for you, Aviwe. I'm just going to mute everybody again because I'm getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people. Palis, I'm just going to share my screen and play scenario number 6 again for Aviwe. If you can talk us through that one again, please. This is the partner catch on the boundary in the BBL game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so in this one, he makes contact with the ball inside the field of play and he throws it to his colleague. He can leave the field of play because he doesn't touch the ball beyond the boundary. And it's just a pity we don't have the Jadeja one. This is exactly what happened last night. Jadeja took the ball inside of the boundary, threw it up to his fellow fielder and left the field of play. But at no point was he beyond the boundary. Therefore, he didn't have to return back to the field of play. So when this guy catches the ball there at this point, he's inside, throws it, still inside. Now he goes over the boundary. So he doesn't have to land back inside the boundary because his last contact with the ball was inside the field of play.
Correct. So he didn't juggle the ball outside the field of play. That's why he doesn't need to come back inside the field of play.
Correct.
Aviwe, I hope that answers your question.
Clear, Tom. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Next hand up is Deepak Chopra. Please unmute your microphone, Deepak. The floor is yours.
Hi, Tom. My question is regarding Jadeja's catch. I think that already got answered, maybe. But I felt that as per the new laws, maybe it was a boundary 6 since Jadeja didn't come back inside the field of play.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have it, but Palis, if you can repeat yourself one more time.
Like we said, it's just easier if we see the video and explain it like all the others. So in that scenario, he took the catch inside the field of play. And before leaving the field of play, he threw the ball to his fellow fielder. And then he went over the boundary. So at no point was in contact with the ball beyond the boundary. His first and final contact was inside the field of play. So therefore, he doesn't have to come back. If his second or his last contact was outside the field of play, then he needs to come back inside.
Deepak, I hope that answers your question.
So it's very similar to the one video. Was it 6? Yeah, it's the same as 6.
Yeah.
Scenario 6, it's exactly the same thing. Obviously not as acrobatic as that. He just took it casually on the boundary, saw that he was going over, threw it up to his fellow fielder, and then stepped out and came back in.
So what I'll do is when Abdullah is presenting later, I will try and find that video of Jadeja. He didn't actually complete the catch, but I saw it myself. You're right. He took the first catch and then threw it inside, went outside, and his colleague completed the catch. So we'll try and get that one to show it to everybody later this evening. Next hand up in the meeting room is Mohammed Shakur from New York. Mohammed, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Question. A fielder stretch and catch the ball. Number one, he did not catch the ball. Juggle the ball out of the boundary before his second contact. He parried the ball back into the boundary. Fielder number two took the catch. What would be your decision in that scenario? It's similar to scenario number 4, because based on scenario number 4, the old rule is out and the new rule is 6. So clarification, please. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to have a look at scenario number 4, Mohammed, because it's difficult to picture a scenario without a video. So please talk us through this one again, which you said was the reason for the change by the ICC.
Yeah. So his first contact is inside the field of play. Then he throws it up. 1 and 2. I think there's like a frame missing there or something.
Yeah, but what is your decision? What is your decision, sir, in that scenario? Out or
this is boundary 6. Boundary 6.
No, hold on.
Because
he's
in contact with the ball outside. The old law is out.
Okay.
Because at no point does it touch the ground or the ball, so he can juggle, and come inside, and then right.
Okay.
But now the new law, yeah, once he touches it there, he needs to land inside, but he touches it twice.
Yes, but that's my question right there.
So it's boundary 6.
Yes, technically, you have control of the ball and control of his movement, to be honest.
Yeah, but you only allowed one touch outside. He's touched it more than once.
Yeah, but he did not make contact with the ground.
Mohammed, there's been a change to the law. The law says if you make contact with the ball while you're outside of the field of play, then you need to immediately land back in the field of play. There you can see that he does not land immediately back in the field of play after he's juggled the ball outside the field of play. What happens is he throws it up, but you can see he's still running outside of the field of play. That is why it is now a boundary 6 and not out court.
Out. Okay, over.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'm glad that clarifies that point for you. Okay, we're going to take one final question for Allahudien Paleker, and it is from Given Sitole. Given, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
All right, Mr. Tom. My question is on the issues. I think we have two scenarios of fielders who have stepped on the boundary there. Is there a difference? Can you please explain to me? We have scenario number 9, and also I think it's scenario number 2, where we get fielders getting to step on the boundary rope there. What's the difference? Can you please explain to me a bit? Because they give us two different results.
Okay, so Palis, I think what Given is asking is, I don't think in scenario number 2 we stepped. I think it was scenario number 1 where he touched the rope. Given?
No, I think it was 2.
Was it 2? Okay, let's have a look at 2. Number 2 is the parry back. It doesn't touch. Given, is that one of the scenarios you're talking about?
No, it's not. I think it's number 1. Can you?
Yeah, scenario number 1. Okay, let's play scenario number 1. Okay. So yeah, Palis, you'll see Alex Hales as he's as he's thrown the ball up and goes outside of the field of play, he just brushes the boundary cushion. But we've given that out. And then for Bumrah,
Yeah.
we've said it's boundary 6. So when he's
So
taken off from the boundary cushion.
Yeah, so in scenario 1, his first contact is inside the field of play. So just check that again. So first contact inside the field of play. Then he throws it up. Then he can touch the boundary afterwards because this is not his first contact. Remember what I said? We talk about first contact and last contact.
Mm.
So first contact, once he touches the ball, is completely inside the field of play. He throws it up. Now he can touch the boundary, touch the floor, touch whatever he needs to touch.
Mm.
But once he lands inside, his final contact must be inside. And you can take off from wherever, it doesn't matter because your first contact was inside.
Let's compare that to Bumrah. And
because that is very similar to taking off from outside the field of play, because whether you're grounded outside or whether you're touching the boundary, it's the same thing.
the same, correct. So here, Bumrah hasn't touched the ball while he was inside the field of play. I think that's the big difference between the two scenarios.
Yeah, so that's why I said, just remember, when we look at this, it's about the first contact and the last contact. So now with the Hales incident, his first contact was inside, no problem. So now he goes outside and then his last contact is inside. With Bumrah, his first contact is inside the field of play, but he takes off from the boundary. So in other words, his first contact is from outside the field of play because he takes off from the boundary.
So
Therefore, that's 6.
So taking off from the boundary cushion is the same as taking off from outside the field of play. Alice, can you confirm that?
Yep. Yes, yes. So the boundary is basically the ground beyond the boundary is the same as the boundary. So that's outside the field of play. So your first contact has to be completely inside.
Perfect. So Bumrah's contact with the ball is from outside of the field of play. Why? Because he's taken off from touching the boundary cushion. If he had taken off not touching the boundary cushion inside the field of play, then that would have been runs. He would have saved the boundary.
Correct.
Given, I hope that that explains to you the difference in those two scenarios. Yes?
Thank you, sir.
Great. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for your questions to Palis. And Palis, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. You've got a test match starting tomorrow at 10 a.m. In Sri Lanka time. So unfortunately, we are not going to be taking any more questions for Palis. Palis, we hope that you'll be able to join us in 1 or 2 more of our lectures for level 3, because there are more changes to playing conditions that have been applied by the International Cricket Council for test matches, one-day internationals, and also men's T20 internationals. So thank you, and please, we hope to have you on again soon.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks everybody for partaking, and always a pleasure. If I'm available any other time, I will gladly assist wherever I can.
Great stuff, Palis. All the best for the test match, and we'll be in touch as usual. Good night and chat soon.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Cheers.
Thanks, Palis. Thanks, Tom Makarosi.
Mr. Palis, thanks
Thank
for
you,
answering my
Palis.
question. And thanks for sharing your knowledge
Thanks,
and your
Palis.
expertise.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Palis. Thanks so
Tom
much.
George.
Thanks, Palis.
Thank you so much, Palis.